first time ever, right? I mean, we had this debate how many times? Whose power was right? Good evening, everyone. First order of business on the agenda this evening is to review and approve the agenda. Are there any modifications, additions, substitutions that we need to entertain, Elizabeth?
Nope.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The second order on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting, which was February 6th, 2024. Any additions, modifications, editorial comments that need to be addressed?
None from me.
I will entertain a motion for the adoption of the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Up to our public comments section of the meeting. This is where the general public is invited to address the Zoning Board of Appeals on any items that are not on the agenda. So if there's one item on the agenda tonight that we're going to discuss, which is open for the public to comment on and not in the context of your concern, please feel free to stand up, state your name, address, step to the microphone, and enlighten us. Hearing none, closing the public comments period and moving on to the fifth agenda item, the variance request and public hearing for 717 Rutledge Avenue Northeast. Mr. Coster, as the secretary, I've seen that in the minutes now, could you please read the variance request application for us?
Applicant John Schmolt, project address 717 Rutledge Street Northeast, permanent parcel number 411031479011, size of site approximately 0.25 acres, zoning R1A residential, zoning ordinance sections, section 3.10C.7A, section 3.01C4. Action requested of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The applicant is requesting multi-variances to permit the placement of a temporary steel carport in the side yard where it is required to be placed in the rear yard per the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Carl. Elizabeth, would you like to brief us on any peculiarities before opening up the public comment and the like?
Sure, yeah. So this variance request is for the placement of a carport structure in the side yard, where typically temporary style carports are required to be placed in the rear yard, just for aesthetic reasons usually. So that's the intent of the zoning code. And we've talked with our township attorneys on cases like this, where the variance is being sought as an accommodation for a disability. And the township has an obligation to provide reasonable accommodations for folks with disabilities. And variances are typically the way to do that. So we can allow them in certain cases, but not for everybody in the township. So the applicant has volunteered that if in the future the property is sold, that the carport will be either relocated to the backyard or removed. And since it is a disability involving mobility, and it's reasonable access to safe parking, staff is comfortable with this approach. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you for the introduction. Given that, and this is a public hearing, we'll entertain any comments that the public would wish to make. If you're so inclined, please wait to be called on. Come to the mic, come to the podium, state your name and address. Hearing none, we'll close that portion. We'll have I'm sorry?
How's it going? Long time no see, most of you. Good to see you all again, though. Name's Levi Knoll, residents of 724 Rutledge Street, directly across the street from John, and owner of Archival Brewing, 6266 West River Drive. We've lived there for what, 9 years, somewhere in there. They've always been a great neighbor, accommodating to everybody in their neighborhood, and helpful, with before limited mobility, always helped out, always a great neighbor to be around. No personal issue as a resident currently to have the structure up, even if it existed post them moving, would have no issue with it. So for my sake, and speaking on behalf of my wife, who also lives there, we would like to see this go up so that John can have a secure place to access his car, to get into and out of his car, especially during the winter time when snow is an issue and ice is an issue. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Levi. Being that I was quick on the trigger and closing the public hearing too suddenly last time, anyone else? Going once, going twice. Closed. Thank you. Discussion among my colleagues. Elizabeth has prepared a great and provided a wonderful summary for us. We have some special conditions here with the practical difficulty standards that we're being requested to evaluate. Mike, might you have any questions, comments, concerns?
No significant questions or concerns. I think the need to provide reasonable accommodation, and the applicants offered to apply the condition of removal at some point in the future make this a pretty straightforward request.
Thank you. Robin?
I'm curious how the structure is going to be anchored and whether or not it will be in such a way that with the winds that we have now, that it can't be affecting the neighbors. So will it be securely attached?
You have to make sure that it's going to be properly anchored into the ground.
I have a drawing that I've contracted with not yet, but I've been in contract with a cement company
Okay.
that do cement work, and to put in a 4-inch, 13 by 12 to 13 by 20 foot pad
Mm-hmm.
to set a portable carport on.
Mm-hmm.
And that would then be anchored to the concrete. There's 6 poles,
Mm-hmm.
3 on each side, and then screwed them into the cement in the ground.
Okay, thank you. No other comments?
Tom?
I don't have any substantial comments other than to say, thank you very much for your service. I'm glad we can accommodate these kind of things.
Carl?
I guess my only question is, if this were a normal request on a normal property, we as a board would probably deny it. But under these special conditions, we are being asked to provide for a veteran, and I see no reason why we should not do so. That's all I have.
Thank you. Seems pretty well represented in the approval, or the suggested motion to approve category. I'm not going to deviate from it in that our mission is to evaluate standard of difficulty and the practical difficulties. You are living those, and you've provided a solution to one of the categories that plague us, in that when we give a variance, it's to address a unique and one-off type condition. Your physical ailment and the agreement to bring the house, bring the property into compliance upon sale of the property solves those two issues for us. So I will throw my support. I have no objection to this variance in this context. So are there any other comments that board members would need to or wish to address? Given that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm going to ask Elizabeth a question.
We've lived there about between 32 and 35 years. Buying a house back then with a single stall and garage, I never anticipated where I would be today physically. And I kind of got to thinking that, you know, rather than put another structure onto my garage, to put a portable up. And I have worked very closely with Elizabeth and Peter going through this whole process. And I assured them, if the township so desired, when I'm gone, he could take it down. She wouldn't need it. And I just want to thank you for letting me apply for a variance. Very much thank you.
Carl, you had a question that you were going to raise
Elizabeth,
for Elizabeth?
how much of this do you want us to read into the minutes?
I think you gotta read it all,
All
yeah.
of it?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
If you want to go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Consistent with the applicant's voluntary offer to limit the duration of the variance, I move to grant the following variances. One, a variance to permit the structure in the side yard where it's required to be placed in the rear yard behind the home per section 3.01C.7A. And two, a variance to permit an accessory building that's not architecturally compatible with the principal building where it's required for all accessory buildings over 200 square feet per section 3.01C.4 of the zoning ordinance. Subject to the following condition of approval, the applicant shall relocate the carport upon sale of the property to a conforming location, rendering the variance null and void, based on the following findings of fact. One, there's an inadequate level of covered parking on the property to accommodate its reasonable use for a mobility-disabled individual. Two, the conditions of the site are not self-created by the applicant. Three, the strict compliance with the zoning ordinance standards for rear yard and accessory building size is unnecessarily burdensome for a mobility-disabled individual. Four, granting the variances would provide substantial justice to the property owner. Five, the uniqueness of the request makes a text amendment undesirable. And six, the proposed variance requests are supported for those reasons set forth by the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals as reflected in the entire record of this matter, including the meeting minutes.
Support?
Support.
Support.
We have a motion, we have support. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The variance is approved.
You're all set.
Like all of you, I try to stay with the rules, and I saw a lot of stuff going on in the township that I wasn't happy with, and I want to assure you that mine aesthetically is going to look very much nicer than what I see happening around the township with people that don't follow the rules. And so I just wanted to let you know that with your approval, I'm going to make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible for my wonderful neighbors and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I gotta follow that. No, Elizabeth, you have to follow that. Are there any comments that the staff would like to apprise us of?
I don't have anything for you. Nothing coming on your agendas, so I'll let you know if anything pops up.
All right, going down the radio dial. Robin, anything?
No, no comments.
Thomas?
Well, I could go for a while on township business.
This is the Board of Appeals.
I know, so I'll limit it and say we have lots of things happening in the township right now. We just survived the LPGA event. We have the triathlon at Versluis Lake coming up in early August, and we have plenty of roads being worked on. None of that has to do with ZBA, but I had to say it.
Quality of life and viabilities, yes.
Thank you, thank you.
And there's a tremendous amount of road work today in their area.
Yes.
They got
It's-
a lot going on.
It's my livelihood, so be aware, it's gonna get uglier before it gets better. But when it gets done, you'll wanna kiss those guys that made a mess of your yard right on the face. Carl,
No, no comments.
Matt, Mike,
Nothing else for me, thank you.
and I have nothing. Given that, and it's 5:16.
6:16.
6:16, sorry. We would like to adjourn.